All right. Hello, hello, hello. And welcome back to another reading stream. Today we're going to be finishing up the Sherlock Holmes story, The Sign of the Four by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Turns out there was only one last chapter to read. The rest of the stuff on that free to read site was a bunch of legal stuff, explaining copyright and public domain stuff. So yeah. So we just have one more chapter of that, and then we gotta decide what to read after that. Sorry, just. All right. So with that said, let me make myself invisible for a moment while I grab my book. Cancel book. There's my book. All right. Book. Are we all settled in? Here I am. Actually, I should check my sound. Testing. Oh no, that's not gonna do. All right, let's try that. Nope. Testing. There we go. There we go. Oh, I gotta change this to. All right. So now to continue the Sign of the Four with this last chapter. Chapter 12. The Strange Story of Jonathan Small. A very patient man was the inspector in the cab, for it was a weary time before I rejoined him. His face clouded over when I showed him the empty box. "I guess the reward," he said gloomily,
Where there's no money, there's no pay. This night's work would have been worth a tenner each to Sam Brown and me if the treasure had been there.
Mr. Thaddeus Shalotto is a rich man, I said. He will see that you are rewarded, treasure or no. The inspector shook his head despondently, however.
It's a bad job, he repeated, and Mr. Audley Jones will think.
His forecast proved to be correct, for the detective looked blankly enough when I got to Baker Street and showed him the empty box. They'd only just arrived. Holmes, the prisoner, and he, for they had changed their plans so far as to report themselves at the station upon the way. My companion lounged in his armchair, with his usual listless expression, while Smalls sat sturdily opposite to him, with his wooden leg crocked above his sound one. I exhibited the empty box. He leaned back in his chair and laughed.
"This is your doing, Smalls." "Oh, this is your doing, Smalls,"
said Arthur Jones angrily.
"Yes, and I have put it away where you shall never lay hands upon it," he cried exultantly. "It's my treasure, and I can't have that loot. I'll take the darn good care that no one else does. I'll tell you that no living man has any right to it, unless it is the 3 men who are in the Ottoman convict barracks and myself. I know now that I cannot have the use of it, and I know that they cannot. I've acted all through for them. I've acted all through for them as much as for myself. Now it's been the sign of for which with us always. Well, I know they would have had me do just what I had done, and throw the treasure in the Thames rather than let it go to the kith or kin of Shalotto or Marston. It was not to make them rich that we did for attachment. You'll find the treasure where the key is, and that's where little Tonga is. When I saw that although your launch must catch us, I put the loot away in a safe place. There's no rupees for you this journey."
"You're the slaving, oh Smalls," said Arthur Jones sternly. If you had
wished to throw the treasure in the Thames, it would have been easier for you to throw the box and all.
Easier for you to throw and easier for you to recover, he said with a shrewd, sidelong look. The man that was clever enough to hunt me down is clever enough to pick up an iron box in the bottom of a river. Now that they are scattered over 5 miles or so, it may be a harder job. It went to my heart to deuce with, though. I was half mad when they came up with us. However, there's no good grieving over it. I've had ups in my life and I've had downs, but I've learned now not to cry over spilled milk.
"That's a very serious matter, Smalls," said the detective. "If you had helped justice instead of thwarting it in this way, you would have had a better chance at your trial."
"Justice!" snarled the ex-convict. "A petty justice! Whose loot is this? If it is not yours, where's the justice that I should give it up to those who had never earned it? Look, I have earned it 20 long years in that fever-ridden swamp, all day at work under the mangrove tree, all night chained up in the filthy convict huts, bitten by mosquitoes, racked with algae. It's not algae. It's a U. AGUE. Well, I guess that's our first word we're looking up. Oh, it's another word for malaria, or other illness involving fever and shivering.
Bullied by every cursed
black-faced policeman who loved to take it out of a white man. Dude, racist. That was how I earned the Agra treasure. And you talk to me of justice, 'cause I bear to feel that I've paid this price, only that another may enjoy it. I would rather swing a score of times, or have one of Tonga's darts in my hide, than live in a convict cell and feel that another man is at his ease in the palace with the money that should be mine. Malls had dropped his mask of, sto- of stoicism. Stoicism? Of stoicism. Of stoicism. And all this came out in a wild whirl of words, while his eyes blazed and the handcuffs clinked together with the impassioned movement of his hands. I could understand as I saw the fury and the passion of the man, but it was no growl, this or unnatural tremor which had possessed Major Salato when he first learned that the injured convict was upon his track. You forget that we know nothing of all this, said Holmes quietly. We have not heard your story, and we cannot tell how far justice may originally have been on your side. Well, sir, you have been very fair spoken to me, though I can see that I have you to thank that I have these bracelets upon my wrist. Still, I bear no grudge for that. It is all fair and above board. If you want to hear my story, I have no wish to hold it back. What I say to you is God's truth, every word of it. Thank you. You can put that glass beside me here. I'll put my lips to it if I am dry. Okay, the rest of this is him talking. Okay. I'm a Worcestershire. I am a Worcestershire man. Worcestershire? Like in the sauce? That's weird. I'm a Worcestershire man and myself. More near Perishore. I dare say you would find a heap of Smalls living there now if you were to look. I've often thought of taking a look around there, but the truth is that I never much of a credit to the family, and I doubt if they would be so glad to see me. They were all steady chapel-going folk, small farmers, well known and respected over the countryside, while I was always a bit of a rover. At last, however, when I was about 18, I gave them no more trouble, for I got into a mess over a girl. Hi, welcome to the stream. And I'm doing alright. How are you? Glad you could show up. Hold on, I'm gonna take a drink. So, I've told this short little story before, but actually had a time where I was trying out all the classics, and they were enjoyable. Well, I say all of them, but there are a lot. And when I tried Sherlock Holmes, the library I was at was a high school library, and it had the entire collection in 2 volumes of the shorter stories. I didn't realize this. I picked up the second volume, and the fact it started in the hundreds threw me for a loop. It's like, man, this is a weird page to start on. Anyways, I read a few of those stories and eventually returned it for finishing the thing. I can't remember why. I think I just had a lot of things I was reading, and that was taking me away from that book. I read a lot in high school. I got a lot. Anyways, this is the final chapter of the Sign of the Four. I don't know how much context you're going to be missing. This is the end of the book. After that, not entirely sure what we're going to read next. We're either going to move on to the next Sherlock Holmes book, or we're going to continue Dracula. I'd rather save Frankenstein for when Kat's here, since that was her request and her favorite book. There's also the option of potentially doing some of the Tales of King Arthur.
What was the other one I had going on in my head? Da, 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 da. No, that was it. That's all I had going on in my head. At least that I had mentioned before. Anyways, on with it. For I got in a mess over a girl and could only get out of it again by taking the Queen's shillings and joining the third buffs, which was just starting for India. I wasn't destined to do much soldiering. However, I had just got past the goose step and learned to handle my musket when I was fool enough to go swimming in the Ganges. Luckily for me, my company sergeant, John Holder, was in the water at the time and was one of the finest swimmers in service. A crocodile took me just as I was halfway across, nipped off my right leg as clean as a surgeon could have done it, just above the knee. What with the shock and the loss of blood, I fainted. Should have drowned if Holder had not caught hold of me and paddled for the bank. I was 5 months in the hospital over it, and when at last I was able to limp out of it with this timber toe strapped to my stump, found myself invalid out of the army, unfit for any active occupation. I was, as you imagine, pretty down on my luck at this time, for I was a useless cripple, though not yet in my 20th year. However, my misfortunes proved to be a blessing in disguise. A man named Abel White had come out there as an indigo planter. Whatever wanted an overseer to look after his collies, keep them up to their work. He had happened to be a friend of our colonel's, who had taken an interest in me since the accident. To make a long story short, the colonel recommended me strongly for the post. As work was mostly to be done on horseback, my leg was no great obstacle, for I had enough knee left to get a good grip on the saddle. What I had to do was ride over the plantation and keep an eye out on the men as they worked, and to report the idlers. The pay was fair. I had comfortable quarters, and although I was content to spend the remainder of my life in indigo planting, Mr. Abel White was a kind man, would have often dropped my little shanty and smoked a pipe for me, for white folk out there feel their hearts warm each other as they never do here at home. While I was never in luck's way long, suddenly without a note of warning, the Great Mutiny broke upon us. 1 month India lay as still and peaceful to all appearance as Surrey in Kent, and the next there was 200,000 black devils let loose. The country was a perfect hell. Jesus, dude, racism. Of course you know all about it, gentlemen. Oh, wait, a deal more than I do. Very like since reading. Dude, your grammar. Very like. Since reading is not in my line, I only know what I saw with my own eyes. Our plantation was a place called Old Matra, under the border of the Northwest Province. Night after night the whole sky was alight with the burning bungalows. And then day after day we had a small company of Europeans passing through our state with their wives and children on their ways to Agra. Where were the nearest troops? Where were the nearest troops? Mr. Abel White was an obstinate man. He had it in his head that the affair had been exaggerated, and that it would blow over as suddenly as it sprung up. That he sat on his veranda, drinking whiskey pegs and smoking cherokees while the country was in a blaze about him. Of course, we stuck by him, I and Dawson, who, with his wife, used to do that book work and the managing. Well, one fine day, the crash came. I had been away on a distant plantation, was riding slowly home in the evening. My eyes fell upon something all huddled together at the bottom of the steep nullah. I rode down to see what it was, and the cold struck through my heart when I found it was Dawson's wife, all cut to ribbons, half eaten by jackals and native dogs. A little further up the road, Dawson himself lying on his face, quite dead, and a revolver in his hand, and four supplies lying on his face, quite dead, or lying across each other in front of him. I reined up my horse, wondering which way I should turn. At that moment I saw
thick smoke curling up from Abel White's bungalow, the flames beginning to burst to the roof. I knew then that I could do my employer no good, but would only throw my own life away if I were to meddle in the matter. From where I stood, I could see the hundreds of black fiends with their red coats still on their backs, dancing and howling around the burning house. Some of them pointed at me, and a couple of bullets sang past my head, so I broke away across a paddy field, found myself late at night, safe within the walls of Agra. As it proved, however, there was no great safety there either. The whole country was up like a swarm of bees. Whenever the English could collect in little bands, they held just the ground that their guns commanded. Everywhere else, they were helpless fugitives. It was a fight of the millions against the hundreds, and the cruelest part of it was that these men that we fought against, foot, horse, and gunner, were our own picked troops, whom we had taught and trained, handling our weapons and blowing our own bugle calls. At Agra, there were the third Bengal Fulisters? I don't know that word. Some sheiks. I'd say sheiks, but it has no E. Some shis? Sikhs. 2 troops of horse and a battery of artillery. A volunteer corps of clerks and merchants had formed, and this I joined, wooden leg and all. We had went out to meet the rebels of the Oh God, these names! This racism is not helping right now. At the Shahongling Guint. This fucking word, I swear, it is a place. Probably. Let's look it up. I'm finding a battle. The bolt of Schengen shows still greater one. Has to do with the Indian Mutiny. Alright, that didn't help. It brought up what this circumstance is, but it didn't give me a location besides India. India's big! Like, really big. Anyways, early in July, we beat them back for a time, but our power odor gave out. We had to fall back upon the city. Nothing but the worst news came to us from every side, which is not to be wondered at. If you had looked at the map, you will see that we were right in the heart of it. Lucknow was rather better than 100 miles to the east, and Kapanur about as far south. From every point of the compass, there was nothing but torture and murder and outrage. The city of Agra is a great big place, swarming with fanatics and fierce devil worshippers of all sorts. Our handful of men were lost among the narrow, winding streets. Our leader moved across the river, therefore, and took up his position in the old fort of Agra. I don't know if any of you gentlemen have ever read or heard anything of that old fort. It is a very queer place, the queerest that ever I was in, and I have been in some rum corners too. First of all, it's enormous in size. I should think that the enclosure must be acres and acres. There's a modern part which took all of our garrisons, women, children, stores, and everything else, with plenty of room over. The modern part is nothing like the size of the old quarters, where nobody goes, and where it's given over to the scorpions and centipedes. It's all full of great deserted halls, and winding passages, and long corridors twisting in and out, so that it's easy enough for folks to get lost in it.
For this reason, it was seldom that anyone went into it, though now and again a party with torches might go exploring. The river washes along the front of the old fort and so protects it, but on the sides and behind there are many doors, and these had to be guarded, of course, and the old quarter as well, as in that which was actually held by our troops. We were short-handed, with hardly men enough to man the angles of the building to serve the guns. It was impossible for us, therefore, to station a strong guard at every one of the innumerable gates. What we did was organize a central guardhouse in the middle of the fort, to leave each gate under the charge of one white man and 2 or 3 natives. I selected to take charge during certain hours of the night of a small isolated door upon the southwest side of the building. Two sheik, there's that word again, sheiks, shis, fuck, this word, sheiks. The sheiks looks like it could be correct, but there's no E. Then again, they spelled this place with a J, so hey, whenever I looked it up, and that wasn't the spelling here, so who fucking knows? Troopers were placed under my command. I was instructed if anything went wrong to fire my musket, when I rely on help coming at once from the central guard. As the guard was a good 200 paces away, however, as the space between was cut up into labyrinths and passing corridors, I had great doubts as to whether they could arrive in time to be of any use in case of an actual attack. Dude, this guy is just rambling on, I swear. I didn't ask for your life story. Christ. Holmes, why are you letting this guy prattle on like this? Have him get to the point. Well, I was pretty proud of having this small command given to me, since I was a raw recruit and game-legged at one. For 2 nights I kept watch with my Punjabis. What the fuck? Word. Resident or descendant of immigrants from Punjab, a speaker of Punjabi language. Definition. A native inherited of the region of Punjabi, an Indic language spoken mainly in the northwestern India and eastern Pakistan. This is weird. They're tall, fierce-looking chaps. Mamit Singha and Bahal Abdullah. Am I putting too many syllables in that? Abdullah Khan, my name. Both old fighting men who had bore arms against us at fucking words, Chilla and Walla. They could talk English pretty well, but I could get a little out of them. They preferred to stand together and jabber all night in their queer Sheikh's lingo. For myself, I used to stand outside the gateway, looking down on the broad, winding river and on the twinkling lights of the great city. The beating of drums, the rattling of tom-toms, and the yells and howls of the rebels, drunk with opium, with bang, were enough to remind. And with opium and with bang. The fuck is bang in this context? I don't even know. I doubt looking that up is going to help. Were enough to remind us all night of our dangerous neighbors who was across the stream. Every 2 hours, the officer of the night used to come around to all posts to make sure that all was well. That third night of my watch was dark and dirty, with a small driving rain. It was dreary work standing in the gateway hour after hour in such weather. I tried again and again to make my sheik talk, but without much success. At 2 in the morning, the rounds passed, broke for a moment the weariness of the night. Finding that my companions would not be led into conversation,
I took out my pipe, laid down my musket and struck a match. In an instant the two sheiks were upon me. One of them snatched my firelock up and leveled it at my head, while the other held a great knife to my throat, and swore between his teeth that he would plunge it into me if I moved a step. My first thought was that these fellows were in league with the rebels, this beginning of an assault. If our door was in the hands of the sepoys, the place would fall. The women and children would be treated as they were in Kapor. Maybe you gentlemen think that I was making out a case for myself, but I give you my word that when I thought that, I felt the point of the knife in my throat, of my mouth the intention of giving a scream, if that was my last one, which might alarm the main guard. The man who held me seemed to know my thoughts, for even as I braced myself, he whispered, Don't make us noise. The fort is safe enough. There are no rebel dogs on this side of the river. There was a ring of truth in what he said. I knew that if I raised my voice, it was a dead man. Could read in the fellow's brown eyes. I waited, therefore, in silence to see what they wanted from me. Listen to me, Sharp, said the taller and fiercer of the pair, and the one whom they called Abdullah Khan. You must either be with us now, or you must be silenced forever. The thing is too great a one for us to hesitate. Either your heart and soul with us on your oath on the cross of the Christians, or your body this night shall be thrown into the ditch, shall pass over to our brothers in the rebel army. There's no middle way. Which is it? Death or life? We can only give you 3 minutes to decide. The time is passing. All must be done before the rounds come again. How can I decide? Said I. You have not told me what you want of me, but I tell you now that if it is anything against the safety of the fort, I will have no truck in it. If you drive home your knife, and welcome. It's nothing against the fort, said he. We only ask that you do that which your countrymen come to this land for. We ask you to be rich. If you will be one of us this night, we swear to you upon the naked knife, and by the threefold oath, which no sheik will ever know to break, that you shall have your fair share of the loot. Quarter of the treasure shall be yours. We can say no fairer. What is the treasure, then? I asked. I'm as ready to be rich as you can be, but if you will but show me how it can be done. You will swear, then, he said, by the bones of your father, by the honor of your mother, by the cross of your faith, to raise no hand and speak no word against us, either now or afterwards. I will swear it, I answered, you provided that the fort is not endangered. Then, my comrade, and I shall swear to you, you shall have a quarter of the treasure, which shall be equally divided among the four of us. But 3, said I. No, Das Aspar must have his share. We can tell the tale to you while you await. Nathan, please, for dear God, this is already a flashback. Don't flashback into a flashback. Do stand at the gates, Muhammad Segna, and give notice of their coming. The things stand thus, Sheba, and I shall tell it to you because I know that an oath is in binding upon a... What the fuck is that word? Free am he, that we may trust you. Had you been a lying Hindu, who though you had sworn by all the gods in their false temples, your blood would have been upon the knife, your body in the water. But the Sheikhs know the Englishmen, and the Englishmen know the Sheikhs. Hearken then to what I say, jihad, the racism! Fuck, who is talking now? This is a Raja in the northern province who has much... No, they're doing a flashback in a flashback. Or they're doing exposition in a flashback of exposition. God damn it. Son of a bitch. Please stop. This is a Raja in the northern province who has much wealth, though his lands are small. Much has come to him from his father, and more still he has set by himself, for he is of low nature, and hoards his gold rather than spends it. When the trouble broke out, he would be friends both with the lion and the tiger. When the sepoy and the company's Raja, soon, however, it seems to him that the white man's days was come, for though all the land he could hear was nothing but their death and their overthrow, yet being a careful man, he made such plans that, come what might, the least of his treasure should be left to him. That which was in gold and silver he kept by him in the vaults of his palace, but the most precious stones and choicest pearls that he had was put in an iron box, and sent by a trustworthy servant, who under the guise of a merchant should take it to a fort at Agra. There is to lie until the land is at peace. Thus, if the rebels won, he would have his money. If the company conquered, his jewels would be safe to him. Having thus divided his hoard, he threw himself into the cause of the sepoy, since they were strong upon his borders. Of doing this, mark you, Sheba, his property becomes the dues of those who have been true to their salt. Who the fuck continues to talk? This pretend merchant who traveled under the name Akma is now in the city of Agra. God damn it, guys. A desire to gain his way to the fort. He has with him as traveling companion his foster brother Dusk Akbar. Get to the point! Who knows his secret? Dusk Akbar has promised this night to lead him to a postern of the fort, and has chosen this one for his purpose. Here he will come presently, and here he will find Mahasanj and myself awaiting. The palace is lonely, and none shall know of his coming. The world shall know of the merchant Akbar no more, but the great treasure of Raja shall be divided among us. What say you? You to it, Shiva. In the Western light, the life of a man seems a great and sacred thing, but it is very different when there is fire and blood all around you, and you have been used to meeting death at every turn. Whether Ahmed the merchant lived or died was a thing as light as air to me. As the talk of the treasure, my heart turned to it. I thought of what I might do in the old country with it. How my folks would stare when they saw their ne'er-do-well coming back with his pockets full of gold moistures. I had, therefore, already made up my mind. Abdullah Khan, however, thinking I hesitated, pressed the matter more closely. "Consider, Shibal," said he, "that if this man is taken by the commandment, he will be hung or shot. His jewels taken by the government, so that no man will be a rupee the better for him. Now, since we do the taking of him, why should we not do the rest as well? The jewels will be as well with us in the company's coffers. There will be enough to make every one of us rich men and great chiefs. No one can know about the matter, for here we are cut off from all men. What could be better for the purpose? Say again then, Shiva, whether you are with us, or if we must look upon you as an enemy." "I am with you, heart and soul," said I. "It is well." Well, he answered, handing me back my firelock. "You see that we trust you, for your word, like ours, is not to be broken. We have now only to wait for my brother and the merchant." "Does your brother know, then, of what you will do?" I asked. "The plan is his. He has devised it. We will go into the gate, share the watch with Mahot Sanj." The rain was still falling steadily, for it was just the beginning of the wet season. Brown, heavy clouds were drifting across the sky. It was hard to see more than a stone cast. "I'm going to stop you there. Could you get to the point? I don't care what the weather was right now. I don't care for these frivolous details of how you came into the treasure. Just give me the lowdown and we can move on." No, I have to tell you every single little detail, okay? Come on, aren't you a stickler for details? Actually, I tend to forget most things afterwards that are unnecessary. A deep moat lay in front of our door, but the water was in places nearly dried up and could be easily crossed. It was strange to me to be there with these two wild old Punjabis. He's waiting for the man who was coming to his death. Suddenly my eye caught the glint of a shaded lantern the other side of the moat, vanished just among the mound heaps, then appeared again, coming slowly in our direction. Here they are, I explained. You will challenge them, Shibai, as usual, whispered Abdullah. Give him no cause for fear. Send us in with him, and we shall do the rest, while you stay here on guard, and the lantern ready to uncover, that we may be sure that it is indeed the man. The light had flickered onward now and stopped. Now stopping, and now advancing, until I could see two dark figures upon the other side of the moat. I let them scramble down the sloping bank, splashing through the mire, and climb halfway up to the gate before I challenged them. Who goes there? said I in a subdued voice. Friends, came the answer as I uncovered my lantern and threw a flood of light upon them. The first was an enormous shigeth with a black beard which swept nearly down to his cummerbund. Outside of a show, I had never seen so tall a man. The other was a little fat, rounded fellow with a great yellowish turban and a bundle in his hand and done up in a shawl. He seemed to be all in a quivering with fear, for his hands twitched as if he had the ague, and his head kept turning to the left and the right with two bright little twinkling eyes, like a mouse when he ventures out from his hole. It gave me the chills to think of killing him, but I thought of the treasure. My heart set as hard as flint within me. When he saw my white face, he gave me a chirrup of joy and came running up towards me. Your protection, Shiba, he panted. Your protection for the unhappy merchant Akmal. I have travelled across oh God, this word, Rashapuntana, and that I might seek the shelter of the Fort Agra. I have been robbed and beaten and abused because I have been the friend of the company. It is blessed night that when I once more in safety, I and my poor possessions. What have you in the bundle? I had asked. An iron box, he answered, which contains one or two little family matters, which are of no value to others, but which I should be sorry to lose. Yet I am not a beggar, and I shall reward you, young Shiba, and your governor also, if he will give me shelter I ask. I could not trust myself to speak longer with the man. The more I looked at his fat, frightened face, the harder did it seem that we should slay him in the cold blood. It was best to get it over with. Take him to the main guard, said I. The two sheikhs closed in upon him on each side. The giant walked behind him while they marched in through the dark gateway. Never was a man so compassed round with death. I remained at the gateway with the lantern. I could hear the measured tramps of their footsteps sounding through the lonely corridors. Suddenly it ceased. I heard voices and a scuffle with the sound of blows. A moment later there came, to my horror, a rush of footsteps coming in my direction. The loud breathing of a running man. I turned my lantern down the long straight passage, and there was the fat man, running like the wind, with a smear of blood across his face, close at his heels, bounding like a tiger, a great black-bearded sheikhs with a knife flashing in his hand. I had never seen a man run so fast as that little merchant. He was gaining on the sheikhs, and I could see that if he once passed me and got into the open air, he would save himself yet. My heart softened to him, but again the thought of his treasure turned me hard and bitter. I cast my firelock between his legs as he raced past, and he rolled twice over like a shot rabbit. Ere he could stagger to his feet, the sheikhs was upon him and buried his knife twice in his side. The man never uttered moan, nor moved muscle, but lay where he had fallen. I think myself he may have broken his neck with the fall. You see, gentlemen, that I am keeping my promise. I was telling you every work of the business just exactly as it happened, whether it is in my favor or not. He stopped and held out his manacled old hands for the whiskey and water which Holmes had brewed for him. For myself, I confess that I was now convinced the utmost horror of the man, not only for his cold-blooded business, in which he had concern, but even more for the somewhat flippant and careless way in which he had narrated it. Whatever punishment was in store for him, I felt he might accept no sympathy from me. Sherlock Holmes and Jones sat with their hands upon their knees, deeply interested in the story, but with the same disgust written upon their faces. You may have observed it, for there was a touch of defiance in his voice and manner as he proceeded. "It was all very bad, no doubt," said he. "I should like to know how many fellows in my shoes would have refused to share this loot when they knew that they would have their throats cut for their pains. Besides, it was my life or his, and when once he was in the fort, he had got out, the whole business would have come to light, and I should have been court-martialed and shot as likely as not, for people were not very lenient at times like that." "Go on with your story," said Holmes shortly. "Well, we carried him, and Abdullah Akbar and I. A fine weight he was, too, for all he was so short. Mohammed Singh was left to guard the door, or we took him to a place where the Sheikh had already prepared. It was some distance off, where a winding passage led to a great empty hall, the brick walls of which were all crumbling in pieces. The earth floor had sunk in at one place, making a natural grave, so we left Akmal the merchant there, having first covered him over with loose brick. This done, we all went to the treasure. It lay where he had dropped it when he was first attacked. The box was the same, which now lies open upon your table. A key was hung by a silken cord to that carved handle upon the top. We opened it, and the light of the lantern gleamed upon a collection of gems, such as I have read of and thought about when I was a little lad in Pershore. It was blinding to look upon them. When we had feasted our eyes, we took them out and made a list of them. There are 143 diamonds of the first water, including one which was being called, I believe, the Great Mogul, and is said to be the second largest stone in existence. There were 97 very fine emeralds, 170 rupees, some of which, however, were small. There were 40 carbuncles, 210 sapphires, 61 agates, and a great quantity of beryls, onyxes, cat eyes, and turquoises, and other stones, the very names of which I did not know at the time, though I have become more familiar with them since. Besides this, there were nearly 300 and very fine pearls, 12 of which were set in a gold coronet. By the way, these last had been taken out of the chest, were not there when I recovered it. After we had counted our treasure, we put them back in the chest and carried them to the gateway to show them to Mahmud Sinjo. We had solemnly renewed our oaths to stand by each other and be true to our secret. We agreed to conceal our loot in a safe place, until the country should be at peace again, and then to divide it equally among ourselves. There's no use dividing it at present, for if gems of such value were found upon us, it would cause suspicion. There is no privacy in the fort, nor any place where we could keep them. We carried the box, therefore, in the same hall where we had buried the body, and there, under certain bricks in the best preserved wall, we made a hollow and put our treasure. We made careful note of the place, and next day I drew 4 plans, one for each of us, with the sign of the 4 of us at the bottom, for we had sworn that we should each always act for all, so that none might take advantage. That is the oath that I can put my hand to my heart and swear that I have never broken. And, well, there's no use my telling you, gentlemen, what came of the Indian mutiny. After Wilson took Delhi and Sir Collian and relieved Lucknow, the back of the business was broken. Fresh troops came pouring in, and Nabashima made himself scarce over the frontier. A flying column under the Colonel Graded and came round to Agra and cleared the Pandis away from it. Peace seemed to be settling upon the country, and we 4 were beginning to hope that the time was at hand when we might safely go out for our shares of the plunder. In a moment, however, my hopes were shattered by our having arrested as the murderers of Akma. It came about in this way. When the Rajah put his jewels in the hands of Akma, He did it because he knew he was a trusty man. There are suspicious folks in the East, however, so what does this Rajah do but to take a second, even more trustworthy servant and set him to play the spy upon the first? The second man ordered never to let Akma out of his sight, but followed him like a shadow. He went after him that night and saw him pass through the doorway. Of course, he thought he had taken refuge in the fort and applied for administration there himself the next day, but could find no trace of Akma. This seemed to him so strange that he spoke about it to the sergeants of guides, who brought it to the ears of the commandant. Although a search was quickly made and the body discovered, thus at the very moment we thought it was all safe, we were all four seized and brought to trial on the charge of murder, three of us because we had held the gate that night, the fourth because he was known to have been in the company of the murdered man. Not a word about the jewels came out at the trial, for the Rajah had been deposed and driven out of India, so no one had any particular interest in them. The murder, however, was clearly made out, and it was certain that we must all have concern in it. The three Shiga got penal servitude for life, and I was condemned to death, although my sentence afterwards commuted into the same as the others. It was a rather queer position we found ourselves in. There we were, all four tied by the leg, with precious little chance of ever getting out again. All we had each held a secret, which might have put each of us in a palace if we could only have made use of it. It was enough to make a man eat his heart out, to stand the kick and the cuff every petty jack in the office, to have rice to eat and water to drink, when that gorgeous fortune was ready for him outside, just waiting to be picked up. It might have driven me mad, but I always a pretty stubborn one, so I just held on and bided my time. Oh, Jesus Christ. Ugh, why did I choose this voice for him? I couldn't remember what voice I did for him last time. Ugh. At last it seemed to me to have come. I was changed from Agra to Madras, and from there to Blair Islands in the Andamans. There are very few white convicts at this settlement, and as I had behaved well from the first, I soon found myself a sort of privileged person. I was given a hut in Hopetown, which is a small place on the slopes of Mount Harriet, and I was left pretty much to myself. The dreary, fear-stricken place, all beyond our little clearing, was infested with wild, cannibal natives, who were ready enough to blow a poisoned dart at us if they saw chance. There was digging and ditching and planting and a dozen other things to be done, so we were busy enough all day. Though in the evening we had a little time to ourselves. Among other things, I learned to dispense drugs from the surgeon, who picked up a smattering of his knowledge. All the time I was on the lookout for a chance to escape. It is hundreds of miles from any land, little to no wind in those seas, so it was a terribly difficult job to get away. The surgeon, Dr. Samotron, was a fast, sporting young chap. The other young officers would meet in his room of an evening and play cards. The surgery where I used to make up my drugs was next to his sitting room, and a small window between us. Often if I felt lonesome, I used to turn out the lamp in the surgery, and then standing there I could hear their talk and watch their play. I was fond of a hand of cards myself, and almost as good as having one to watch the other. There was Major Shalotto, Captain Morsted, Lieutenant Bromley Brown, who were in command, and the native troops. There was a surgeon himself, and there was the surgeon himself, and the 2 or 3 prison officials, crafty old hands who played a nice, sly, safe game. A very snug little party they used to make. Well, there was one thing which very soon struck me. That was the soldiers used always to lose, and the civilians to win. Mind, I don't say that there was anything unfair, so it was. These prison chaps had done little else than play cards ever since they had been at Ajaman, and they knew each other's game to a point, while the others just played to pass the time and threw their cards down anyhow. Night after night, the soldiers got up poorer men. The poorer they got, the more keen they were to play. Master Shalotto was the hardest hit. He used to pay in notes and gold at first, soon it came to the notes of hands for big sums. He sometimes would win for a few deals just to give him heart, and then the luck would set in and against him worse than ever. All day he would wander about as black as thunder, took to drinking as a way to deal a little more than was good for him. One night he lost even more heavily than usual. I was sitting in my hut when he and Captain Morrison came struggling along on the way to their quarters. They were balsam friends, those two, never far apart. The Major was raving about his losses. "It's all up in Boston," he was saying as they passed my hut. "I should have said in my paper I am a rude man." "Nonsense, chap. Nonsense, chap," said the other, slapping him upon the shoulder. "I've heard but a face of myself, but that was all I could hear. But it was enough to set me thinking. A couple of days later, Major Shalotto was strolling on the beach, so I took the chance to speak with him. "I wish for your advice, Major," said I. "Well, small, what is it?" he said, taking his chair up from his lips. "I wanted to ask you, sir," said I, "who is the proper person to whom hidden treasure should be handed over? I know where 500,000 lies, as I cannot use it myself, but perhaps the best thing to do would to hand it over to the proper authority, and perhaps they would get my sentence shortened for me." "500,000, Smalls!" he gasped, looking hard at me to see if I was in earnest. "Quite that, sir. In jewels and pearls, it lies there ready for anyone. The queer thing about it is the real owner is outlawed and cannot hold property, that it belongs to the first comer." "To government, Smalls," he stammered. "To government!" But he said it in a halting fashion. I knew in my heart I had got him. "You think, then, sir, that I will give the information to Governor Generals?" said I quietly. "Well, well, you must not do anything rash, or that you might repent. Let me hear all about it, Smalls. Give me the facts." I told him the story with small changes so he could not identify the place. When I had finished, he stood stock still and full of thought. I could see by the twitch of his lip that there was struggle going on within him. "This is a very important matter, Smalls," he said, and at last, "you must not say a word to anyone about it, and I shall see you again soon." 2 nights later, he and his friend Captain Morrison came to my hut in the dead of night with a lantern. "I want you to let Captain Morrison hear that story from your own lips, Smalls," said he. I repeated it I had before. It rings true," said he. "Aye, it rings true," said he. "It's good enough to act upon." Or, "It rings true, eh?" said he. "It's good enough to act upon." Captain Morrison nodded. "Look here, Smalls," said the Major. "We have been—" I'm in a flashback again. God damn it. "We have been talking it over, my friend, and here we have come to the conclusion this secret of yours is hardly a government matter at all, but a private concern of yours, which of course you have the power of disposing of as you think best. Now the question is, what price would you ask for it? You might be inclined to take it up and at least look into it, if we can agree as to terms." He had tried speaking in a cool, careless way, but his eyes were shining with excitement and greed. "Why, as to that, gentlemen," I answered, trying also to be cool, but feeling as excited as he did, "there is only one bargain which a man in my position can make. I shall want you to help me to my freedom, and to help my 3 companions to theirs. We shall then take you into partnership, give you a 5th share to divide between you." Said he. "A 5th share? That's not very tempting." "It would come to about 50,000 apiece," said I. "But how can we gain you for freedom? You know very well that you can ask an impossibility." "Nothing of the sort," I answered. "I have thought it all out in the last detail. The only bar to our escape is that we get no boat fit for the voyage, no provisions to last us for a long time. There are plenty of little yachts and yawls of Cactalos and Maderas, as which would serve our turn well. Do you bring one over? Do you bring one over? We shall engage to get aboard her by night, and if you will drop us on any part of the Indian coast, you will be done your part of the bargain. As if there were only one, said he. None or all, I answered. We have sworn it, the four of us must always act together. You see, Morstan, said he, Small is a man of his word. He does not flinch upon his friends. I think we may very well trust him. That's a dirty business, the other answered. Yet as you say, the money would save our commissions handsomely. We're small, said the major. We must, I suppose, try and meet you. We must first, of course, test the truth of your story. Tell me where the box is, here, and I shall give leave of absence, go to India in the month they relieve both, to inquire into the affair. Not so fast, said I, growing colder as he got hot. I must have the consent of my 3 comrades. I tell you that there is 4 and none at all. Nonsense, he broke in. What have 3 black fellows to do with our agreement? Black or blue, said I, they are with me. We all go together. All the matter ended by a second meeting, at which Manoj Singh, Alwa Khan, and Dask Akbar were all present, and talked the matter over again. And at last we came to agreement. We were to provide both the officers with charts of the parts of Agra fort, mark the place in the wall where the treasure was hidden. Major Shalato would to go to India to test our story. If you found the box, we was to leave it there, to send out a small yacht provision for our voyage, which was to lie off Rutland Island, in which we were to make our way. We finally to return to his duties. Captain Morrison was then to apply for leave of absence, meet us at Agra. There we were to have our financial division of treasure, he taking the major's share as well as his own. All this we sealed by the most solemn oath that the mind could think or lips uttered. I sat up all night with paper and ink. By morning I had the 2 charts already signed, the sign of 4, that is, of Abdallah, Akbar, and Mahomet, and myself. Well, gentlemen, I weary you with my long story. I know my friend Mr. Jones is impatient to get me safely stowed in Choki. I'll make it as short as I can. The villain Shalato went to India, but he never came back again. Captain Morrison showed me his name amongst a list of passengers in one of the mail boats very shortly after. His uncle had died, leaving him a fortune. He had left the army. Yet he could stoop to treat 5 men as he had treated us. Morrison and went over to the Agra shortly after, found as he expected that the treasure was indeed gone. The scoundrel had stolen it all, without carrying out one of the conditions on which we had sold him the secret. From that day I lived only for vengeance. I thought of it by day, and I nursed it by night. It became an overpowering, absorbing passion with me. I cared nothing for the law, nothing for the gallows, to escape, to track down Shalato, to have my hand upon his throat. That was my one thought. Even the Agra treasure come to be a smaller thing in mind than slaying Shalato. Well, I've set my mind on many things in this life, and never for one which I did not carry out. But it was my weary years before my time came. I had told you that I had picked up something of medicine. One day, when Dr. Sumatorn was down with the fever, little Absalom Islander was picked up by a convict gang in the woods. He was sick to death and had gone to a lonely place to die. I took him in hand, though he was as venomous as a young snake. After a couple of months, I got him all right and able to walk. He took a kind of fancy to me then, and would hardly go back to the woods, but was always hanging about my hut. I learned a little thing of his lingo from him. This made him all the fonder of me. Tonga, for that was his name, was a fine boatman, and owned a big roomy canoe of his own. When I found that he was devoted to me, would do anything to serve me, I saw my chance to escape. Talked it over with him. He was to bring his boat, on a certain night, to an old wharf which was never guarded, and there he was to pick me up. Gave him the directions, several gourds of water, a lot of yams, cocoanuts, and sweet potatoes. It was a stanch and true, was little Tonga. No man had ever had been more faithful mate. At the night named, he had his boat at the wharf. As it chanced, however, there was one of the convict gang down there, a vile old Pathan who had never missed a chance of insulting and injuring me. I'd always vowed vengeance, and now I had my chance. It was as if fate had placed in my way that I might pay my debt before I left the island. He stood on the bank with his back to me, and his carbine on his shoulder. I looked about for a stone to beat his brains in, but none could I see. Queer thought came into my head, and showed me where I could lay my hands on a weapon. I sat in the darkness and then strapped my wooden leg. With three long hots I was on him, and he put his carbine onto his shoulder, but I struck him full and knocked the whole front of his skull in. You can see the split in the wood now, where I hit him. We both went down together, for I could not keep my balance. But when got up, I found him still lying quiet enough. Made for the boat in an hour. We were well out at sea. Tonga had brought all his earthly possessions with him, his arms and his gods. Among other things, he had a long bamboo spear, some adalum, coconut matting, and with which I made a sort of sail. For 10 days we were beating about, trusting to luck, and on the 11th we were picked up by a trader, which was going from Singapore to Jeddah, with cargo of malaria and pilgrims. They were a rum crowd, and Tonga and I soon managed to settle amongst them. They had one very good quality: they let you alone and ask no questions. Well, if I were to tell you all the adventures that my little chum and I went through, you would not thank me, for I would have you here until the sun was shining. And there we drifted around the world, something always turning up to keep us from London. All the time, however, I never lost sight of my purpose. I dream of Shalotto at night. 100 times I have killed him in my sleep. At last, however, some 3 or 4 years ago, we found ourselves in England. I had no great difficulty in finding where Shalotto lived, and I set to work to discover where he realized the treasure, or if he still had it. I made friends with someone who could help me. I name no names, for I don't want to get anyone else in a hole, and I soon found that he stole the jewels. I tried to get at him in many ways, but he was pretty sly and had 2 prize fighters, besides his sons and his Kitmore on guard over him. One day, however, I got word that he was dying. I hurried at once to the garden. Mad he should slip my clutches like that. And looking through the window, I saw him lying in his bed, with his sons on either side. I had come through and taken my chance with the 3 of them. Only even as I looked at him, his jaw dropped, and I knew that he was gone. Got in his room the same night, though, and I searched his papers to see if there was a record of where he hid the jewels. There was not a line, however, so I came away, bitter and savage as a man could be. Before I left, I bethought me that if I had ever met my Shikith friends again, it would be satisfaction to know I had left some mark of our hatred. So I scrawled down the sign of 4 of us, and it had been on the chart, and I pinned it on his bosom. It was too much as that he should be taken to the grave without some token for the men who he had robbed and befooled. We earned a living at this time by exhibiting poor Tonga at fairs and other such places as the Black Cannibal. He would eat raw meat and dance at his war dance, as we had all had a hatful of pennies after a day's work. I still heard all the news from Puncherry Lodge. For some years there was no news to hear, except that they were hunting for treasure. At last, however, came what we were waiting for. The treasure had been found. It was up at the top of the house in Mr. Bartholomew Shalotto's chemical laboratory. I came at once and had to look at the place. I could not see how with my wooden leg I was able to make my way up to it.
I learned, however, there was a trap door in the roof, and also about Mr. Shalato's supper hour. It seems to me that I could manage the things easily through Tonga. I brought him out with me a long rope wound round his waist. He would climb it like a cat, and soon made his way through the roof. But as ill luck would have it, Bartholomew Shalato was still in his room, to his cost. Tonga thought he had done something very clever in killing him, for when I came with the rope I found him strutting about as proud as a peacock. Very much surprised was he when I made at him with the ropes in and cursed him for a little bloodthirsty imp. I took the treasure box and let it down, then slid down myself, having first left the sign of 4 upon the table, till the jewels had come back at last to those who had most right to it. Tonga then pulled up the rope, closed the window, and made up the way he had come. I don't know that I have anything else to tell you. I heard a waterman speak of the speed of Smith's launch of the Aura, so I thought she would be a handicraft for our escape. I engaged with old Smith, and was to give him a big sum if he got us safe to our ship. He knew, no doubt, there was some screw loose, but he was not in our secrets. All this is truth, and if I tell you this, gentlemen, it is not to amuse you, for you have done me a very good turn, or for you have not done me a very good turn, but it is because I believe the best defense I can make is to just hold back nothing, but let all the world know how badly I have myself been served by Major Shalato, and how innocent I am of the death of his son.
A very remarkable account, said Sherlock Holmes. A fitting wind up to an extremely interesting case. There is nothing at all new to me in the latter part of your narrative, except that you brought your own rope. That I did not know. By the way, I had hoped Tonga had lost all his dogs, yet he managed to shoot one of us in the boat.
He lost all of them, sir, except the one which was in his blowpipe at the time.
Ah, of course, I had not thought of that.
Is there any other point which you would like to ask about?
Asked the convict affably. I think not, thank you, my companion answered.
Well, Holmes, said Arthur Jones, you're a man to be humoured, and we all know that you are a connoisseur of crime, but duty is duty, and I've gone rather far in doing what you and your friend asked me. I shall feel more at ease when we have our storyteller here safe under lock and key. The cab still waits. There are 2 inspectors downstairs. I'm much obliged to you both for your assistance. Of course, you will be wanted at the trial. Good night to you.
Good night, gentlemen both, said Jonathan Smalls.
You first, Smalls, remarked the wary Jones as they left the room. I'll take particular care that you don't club me with your wooden leg, whatever you may have done to the gentleman at Adamant Isles.
Well, and there is the end of our little drama, I remarked, after we had sat some time smoking in silence. I fear that it may be the last investigation in which I shall have the chance to study your methods. Miss Morrison has done me the honour to accept me as a husband in perspective. In perspective. He gave me a dismissal groan. I feared as much, said he. I really cannot congratulate you. I was a little hurt. Have you any reason to be dissatisfied with my choice? I asked. Not at all. I think she is one of the most charming ladies I've ever met. It might have been most useful in such works as we have been doing. She had a decided genius that way, witnessing the ways in which she preserved that Agra plan from all the other papers of her father. But love is an emotional thing, and whatever is emotional is opposed to that true cold reason which I place above all things. I should never marry myself, lest I may bias my judgment. I trust, said I laughing, that my judgment may survive the ordeal, but you look wary. Yes, the reaction is already upon me. I shall be as limp as a rag for a week. Strange, said I. And how terms of what in another man should I call laziness is alternate with your fits of splendid energy and vigor. Yes, he answered. There are in me makings of very fine loafers, and of a pretty spry sort of fellow. I often think of these lines of Hogarth. Scarus des, Dei noter non in manchent as dark son. Den zum ungondien man var zum sharon deskarf. I have no idea what any of that was, and I probably butchered it to high hell. By the way, the uppers of the Wood business, you see that they had, as I surmised, a confederate in the house, who could be none other than Lara, the butler. So Jones actually had the undivided honor of having caught one fish in his great haul. The division seems rather unfair, I remarked. You have done all the work in this business. I get a wife out of it. Jones gets the credit. Pray, what remains for you? For me, said Sherlock Holmes. There still remains of the cocaine bottle. And he stretched his long white hand up for it. All right. And that is the end of that. The end of the Sign of the Four. I hope you all enjoyed that. Anyone who was here listening in. Let's see. Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do. How long did that take me? Almost an hour and a half. Jesus. I mean, it's like an hour and 21 minutes. So probably like an hour 15, considering how long it took me to get started. Oh, yeah. There was one goddamn chapter. Oh, yeah. Let me see. Maybe I should end this stream as is and start a new one. That way I have organization in my book readingness. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. So, I'd like to wish you all a fond farewell, and thank you for stopping by. If you like this, follow me on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. And until next time, fare thee well. Wait, Cat, you're only just now arriving? Hi. Hello. You left me? Well, I'm doing this for organization's sake. I'm gonna end this stream and then I'm gonna start a new one after it. That way I can have this final chapter in its own stream, all organized, fancy. Well, I say fancy, but organized. Then I'm not sure what I'm gonna do. I thought for a while I was gonna do another continue another story, but this one chapter took me over an hour. Goddamn. I might be all storied out for the day. Dad got milk. I get it. So I might continue Fate. I did my Genshin off stream. The few
I might do more reading, but not sure. Again, I'm not sure if I want to do more Fate right now, because that would be a lot more reading too. God damn. Happy you came back when we poofed up. I mean, I didn't really have a talkative chat, so it was something that really stuck out. I could do some Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. I don't know. I don't know what I should do. Talk? Well, let me end this one here for the organization, and then we'll, I don't own Little Nightmares. Also, Little Nightmares is scary. Anyways, get it? But it's scary! I've seen what it is. It's scary. Nothing more scary than me. Anyways, let me end this. Organization, all that good jazz. I'll be back. No stay. Well, if I'm gonna start something else, I want this like a separate thing. So I'll be right back. Hello.